Hello and welcome to this introductory video on how to use the brand new Polar Cardiovascular Disease Report. What you now have in front of you is a version of the report, and you can see quite quickly it's one page broken into a number of different sections, or 3 in total. Now, for a bit of historical context, this report has been based upon 2 sources. Firstly, the guidelines for the management of absolute cardiovascular disease risk, which is this document here. And secondly, the online calculator, which enables a person to put particular metrics in order to calculate their score. The report has been based upon those 2 sources and can actually, with links in the report, you can actually download them for your own reference. However, the big difference here is this calculates a cardiovascular risk score for your whole practice cohort. So instead of doing it one at a time using the online calculator, your practice automatically, every patient within your practice automatically gets the calculation performed for them and provided back in this dashboard report. So let's go into the report and have a look at it in a bit more closer detail. The first thing you'll notice is you'll have an active patient cohort, which is up here in the top left-hand corner. These are all the active patients currently in your clinical information system. Okay. Now you'll notice directly under that, you'll have a click here for Racgp Filter. What this does is it basically returns only the Racgp active patients, or patients who have had 3 or more visits in the last 2 years. And you can see the number less than halved there, or more than halved I should say, from originally 41,000 down to 17,545. This is just a demo data set. Each patient numbers or each practice numbers will be different. You'll notice here on the right hand side you'll have some useful links that will be specific to your own PHN if you've got links that you need to have provided in the report. Okay, so let's remove that filter by clicking on the button again. And let's look at some of the other sections that you'll want to use when using this report. Secondly, you've got this section here called Step 1. And what this is, it's basically grouping all your 41,125 patients into 6 separate categories. First category is active CVD diagnosis. Second is at risk. Then you have high risk, medium risk, low risk, and finally not at risk. Now you'll notice that each of those particular tiles has a little eye, and the eye is hover text, which gives you more information about what it's actually trying to tell you in that particular calculation. And you can see in some instances the hover text can be quite simple, or in this example it can be quite complex. Okay, so whenever you see the eye, please feel free to hover over it with your mouse to be able to get some more information about how that calculation has been performed. You also notice in this report there is some other functionality. You can actually expand or shrink sections. There are 3 sections of the report. By clicking on this section you can reduce it. By clicking on it again you can expand it. Okay, it just helps you with the real estate of your particular screen. What I will do in this instance is I might work through a scenario of how you would potentially come to this report. You would open it up through the Polar Explorer interface or portal, and you might automatically choose your Racgp active filter. I would then potentially reduce that, and then I would say for this particular exercise I want to work with people who are high risk. Okay, so they don't already have an active CVD diagnosis, they're not at risk, they are high risk. And if you need definitions around high risk, once again you can see the information hover text. If I now select this tile, a filter is applied and only 119 patients will be returned into the next part of the report, which is a comprehensive patient list of all the information that's been used to perform that calculation for the absolute risk calculator. And you can go through that in this particular table. At any particular time you can expand it, okay, and the visualizations will come back and it will then show you basically what that number is. So for example, as we wait it refreshes, and you can see that that filter, if I apply it, so if I just click this, click that, you can see it's now returned 119 patients. What I'll do now is go down to the last part of this report, which is the comprehensive patient list. You'll notice at the top of this patient list, what I will do now is I'm just going to minimize these sections to give us a little bit more real estate. You can see that there's a comprehensive legend with color coding which helps you identify particular interests or particular things, and you can see that in instances these colors map back to the colors of the tiles. Okay, once again by clicking on that it shrinks it. And for this instance you'll see all the patients who have fallen into that high risk category. Now they are Racgp active and they've been calculated as a high risk. And for that you can then look at, and you'll see firstly, ranked in categories or sorted, the person with the highest cardiovascular disease risk score or percentage, which in this instance is our pretend patient here, which has a 34%. And as you move across you'll be able to see the information that's helped come up with that 34% score. Another thing that you should also be looking at is the tests. These tests, because this particular metric is very uses a lot of pathology, you'll see that in certain instances that some pathology will be in red. What this is indicating that is the test data is older than 12 months. So in some instances it may be worth, or it could be a process to bring these patients back to collate or get some more pathology results for them. The other thing that's important is here around data quality. You'll see that the pale blue is data quality issue identified. And you can see for these particular patients here, they don't have an Indigenous status recorded as you scroll through. So you can now look at each of those cohorts and start doing some work with them. And as always with Polar, there's an ability to actually return these patients to a list that you can then print off or export, that exports to a CSV file, which means that you can do further work with it. Once again, if you look at the top right hand side, and this is consistent with other Polar reports, by selecting patient list, you'll have the ability to see those patients. Within your practice, you'll then have two buttons up here which will enable you to export it to Excel or PDF. Okay, and once again, clicking back here will bring it back for you. So that's basically how you use it. You would basically look at a cohort, based upon the tiles, and systematically work through it. Now, just as another note of interest, as we bring back down, when you have your total patient cohort, as I just refreshed your report, bear with me for one moment. These numbers in the tiles will always equal the number that's basically displayed here in your active patient cohort. That's just an easy way for you to double check to make sure that the numbers are correlating back. So if we do the maths or metrics, we'll have the same active patient count. Okay, that concludes our introductory session to the Cardiovascular Disease Report. We hope you find it useful, and always please feel free to reach out to your PHN if you need a more comprehensive education session. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.